Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Late Night Happy Hour. Brian Kamenetzky and Andy Kamenetzky excited tonight to be joined by our friend Lindsey Thiry, covers the Rams in the NFL for ESPN, who is she is stopping her work. Like, she does real work. Like, Andy and I just do this. Like, we just yam around. Lindsey's doing real work, and she's stopping it to come talk to us.
Real work on a deadline. We should let people know. Like, Lindsey's going to end up all night because she took the time out to just screw around with two jackasses like us. So we really appreciate it.
Lindsey, before we started, was the Kermit gif. Just typing
I'm always like, hi, I get so excited to see people. I was tempted to say, you guys, I have this feature. I can't do this. But this is our third time trying to do this. And the previous two times I was like, oh my gosh, something came up, but I can't be here. So third time's a charm. I'm here. I'm doing it for you guys. This is also going to give me like a second to let the creative juices just
right. You should just be. I'm doing this for you guys, but be aware, I'm really not focused on it. I'm mostly thinking about my stuff that I've got going on. So don't ask me a lot of questions.
You're in a good place. My story right now, my writing is in a good place.
Can you give a sneak peek to people or let people know what it's actually about?
No.
So what if Brian and I
on ESPN.com? I can't tell you. I mean, it's good. It's personality driven. That's my specialty.
I mean, like, what's the worst thing that happens, Lindsey? Like, if Brian and I guess this thing and you accidentally slip up, like, do you get an angry phone call? Do you get suspended? No, like, how bad is this?
No, and I could probably tell you. I'm like oddly competitive, and I like to be like, oh, boom! You didn't know I was working on this one, did you? Even though it's like. It's a really good. I don't know if it's a good.
Basically, what you're saying is, if you're worried if you say it out loud that like
Gary Klein is going to like just break out the fast piece.
Gary is a fierce competitor. I mean, he might just try and jump in there and snag it. It's right to do so.
Right, and if Gary's not doing that, Jordan Rodriguez. I mean, like, there's so many different people. You got like different Rams blogs. They're all going to jump all over this trying to beat you.
Rich Hammond, he's shifty.
You guys, I'm competitive. I just can't let it go no matter how far away from my good old competitive days. Like, there's just something deep inside. I can't reveal it.
This is what it is. Tell people, by the way, what you played, if they're not aware.
I played volleyball my whole life, basically. Played up until college, played at the University of Washington, and then after I rode the bench and realized I'm never getting off the bench, and I wasn't necessarily loving life, and realized I need to like prepare for when I need a job that's going to pay me in a career, which is in volleyball. I gave that up, and
yet you chose journalism.
Yeah. Which doesn't give me a life, really. I mean, I've been stuck in this room all day long trying to write. But
so
it's a fun job. I love it.
I remember my first story, which was about my coach that wouldn't play me on the volleyball team. A scathing feature on.
I didn't deserve to play. I was on the team with the Olympians. They deserved to play. I was a great ball shagger and like a human serving machine.
Human Serving Machine was actually the name of my band in high school, so I like that. So how have things been? How is this? Like, this has been a crazy week for the Rams because this was their first week of players testing positive for COVID. How does that work? Like, what happened and what did it mean for practices and what does it mean for preparation for the big Monday night game?
Yeah, so basically everyone is tested every single day. The players, the coaches, the support staff who were at the practice facility. So they had a positive test. They test in the morning. They get those results at night. So you come into the facility in the morning, you test, you go about your day, and you don't actually know if you're positive with the coronavirus until that evening. So they catch it early, but they don't catch it before you might have been in contact with other people. So of course earlier this week, was that on Tuesday? Was it on Tuesday? The week's all. I'm like, all the days are messed up now because the Rams play on Monday, so everything's pushed back a day. But earlier this week, around 11 o'clock at night, the Rams announced that they had a positive test, and that was just shortly after they found out because, again, they don't get the morning test back until the evening. So they have placed 3 players on their COVID-19 reserve list. Those 3 players are all in the practice squad. The Rams have not revealed. They cannot, per the rules, tell you which person has tested positive. But it's safe to look at that and say, okay, one of those guys tested positive, and those are obviously his close contacts. If not, somebody else tested positive, although it'd be likely that with the Rams announcing one positive, they'd probably announce subsequent positives.
So if they can't tell you who got it, but by rule, you would think do they have to put the person who tests positive on the COVID injury reserve list?
Yeah, so you would think I'll find out when they do that. And some teams, it does work that way. But again, the Rams have 3 players who they put on the COVID reserve list. So one of those players, you assume, obviously is the person who tested positive. The other 2 were in close contact with that player. Yeah.
Maybe they were just there for a cover story.
Now, this is it's getting kind of hairy with the NFL right now. There are a lot of teams over the last week or so that have been dealing with positive COVID tests, and it's something that's gone on for the entire season, but it's also at a time where, frankly, the entire country is spiking. How much concern have you picked up from both the Rams and the league in terms of the viability of finishing the season, the playoffs, all of that?
The season still really hasn't, with the exception of a couple of rescheduling games, really has been going forward quite smoothly, all things considered. For the Rams, this is the first positive test they've had since players reported to training camp. So, that's a resounding success. There's only, I think, one more team with the Seahawks who haven't had a positive test yet. So it was kind of inevitable. We all knew this day would come. To get through an entire season, not have one positive test, pretty unlikely given the circumstances. But by and large, I think the Rams are really kind of pleased with how they've been able to handle this. From their players to their facility, they have this huge tent that they put up in their parking lot. So even with the NFL going into stricter protocols, they can still have their meetings in person. The tent's outside. It's huge. It's the entire parking lot, plenty of room for distancing and whatnot. So, they're taking it very seriously, but they're still chugging right along.
Do they have policies? Obviously, the NFL has its protocols for what it does when you're at the facility, when you're at games, how you travel, and all this other stuff. Do the Rams have team policies, stuff that they tell guys to do when they're away from the field?
They can't they don't have rules. You can't really tell players you're not allowed to go to a restaurant, you're not allowed to do this or whatnot. But I think there can be strong suggestions. That being said, I think there's a lot of personal responsibility. The Rams can't monitor their players all day, every day, and hold their hands when they're not at the practice facility. But the guys know what's on the line, right? They don't want to miss games. They don't want games to be canceled. And frankly, a couple of them have said, there's not much to do in California right now anyway. What's really good to go do? There's not a whole lot. So there's not a ton of concern when guys aren't in the facility that they're out doing anything that they maybe shouldn't be doing.
There is very little right now in this city worth taking the risk for COVID on right now. Really, there's just not much going on unless your circle is just behaving really irresponsibly. There just isn't anything to do.
I've got nothing to do.
No,
all day writing.
My God, you're on with us. How much could you have to do right now, Lindsey? You're on a deadline and you're still on with us. There is nothing going on.
No, around our house, we just go for a daily walk, if even that, and maybe go pick up some food to go from one of the local restaurants a couple times a week. And other than that, we're here.
Is the football experience is an interesting one for people who don't know. You go in and you're in the locker room and you kind of talk to guys, and there's some time for informal chat. And for somebody like you who's there all the time and really covers it, I assume you can contact guys in any number of ways. But how has this impacted your ability to kind of find stories and stuff like that, because you can't get near anyone to really tell, to get that kind of information?
I did not realize how many of my story ideas were generated from open locker room. I would see you guys in the locker room last couple seasons, right? And you just, I don't it for granted because we were always like, oh, gonna get more time. We always want more time in the locker room. But truly, just being able to kind of casually talk with players, getting to kind of observe different things going on in the locker room. Players chat with others, like who are friends, like what this guy has funny shoes in his locker. You never know what you're going to find in the locker room or what kind of conversation you're going to have. So that is just like a gold mine for story ideas. I know that this year I've been a little thin on sending story pitches to my editors. I'm like, I don't know, like,
or even just getting a feel for like the locker room vibe, or you know, like whose voices matter. You know, like who are some of the, you know, the people who have juice in a locker room that you might not guess, or you know, even somebody like Michael Brockers is great to just talk with.
Locker room guy.
Yeah, he's a great locker room guy. He will give you always, at least in my experience, as much time as you could ever possibly want, and he'll talk about whatever. Yeah. And like stuff like that is really valuable, that, you know, if you're just waiting for somebody else or just like to get sort of, you know, perspective, all that stuff. And you lose out on a lot of different opportunities.
Definitely. And, you know, part of being a reporter is building a relationship. That means you're talking to people when you don't necessarily need something from them, right? I hate when I'm just like, oh, I need you to answer this question. Like, no, I genuinely would like to know, how is your wedding? Like, oh, your wife's going to give birth. That's amazing. Or how's, you know, little Johnny? Oh, he's 2 now. That's terrific. Like, you do get to know these people on like a human level. So, you know, this season, you just miss out on that. Like, I would love to ask Johnny Hacker, like, right? Oh, you have a daughter now, right? Haven't been able to have that conversation with him. And then the thing is, like, when you do talk to players on Zoom, you really don't get to have that conversation there either. It's kind of like, get in, get out, get on with it.
Now, there are some guys, though, I mean, that probably enjoy it this way, you know, prefer it this way.
Are you kidding? There's tons of players that love it this way. Like, no reporters in the locker room bugging us. Yeah, some guys love it. Some guys have only, oh, yeah, that's what's weird this year. You guys aren't in there. And then they still love that we're not in there.
Yeah, plus, too, every time you ask a question, you got Klein stealing the answers for his own stories.
No, Gary.
No, but it is an interesting thing, though. Like, we went through it with basketball. Like, everybody, like, you really can't get that insider information because everybody has access to the same stuff. So it's hard. This is like the kind of like the make, like, I don't want to say the make or break week, but probably the most interesting week so far on the Rams schedule since last week.
I was gonna say last week was huge.
Right, but then we're not here to live in the past anymore. And so the Rams won that game. And we're going to talk more about the NFC West because there was a great game tonight that kind of informs what we saw last week when the Rams beat Seattle. But looking ahead to the Brady game, you know, the Rams go back east again, and this time, though, they're playing a real team. How significant do you think this game is at this point in the season and really trying to establish where the Rams are relative to the rest of the competition in the NFC?
So I think the Rams established where they are last week when they beat the Seahawks. Now, that being said, I know we're going forward here in a sec. The Seahawks were injured, right? Like, we saw what they did tonight. I saw just a couple glimpses, actually. But with Carlos Hyde back in the lineup, offense looked improved. That being said, they go to Tampa Bay, and no matter what, like, the Bucs have had a few ups and downs. They got dismantled by the Saints, but it's always going to be Tom Brady. He's always, whenever he's playing football, it's hard to bet against Tom Brady. So if the Rams can go across the country, beat the Bucs, if this defense, I mean, they were lights out against Russell Wilson. If they can play that same brand of football against Tom Brady, they have a really good shot of winning, obviously. And I think if they do, you have to start talking about them like, they're the surprise team, but they are starting to look like they have an outside shot if they beat the Bucs to really kind of be one of the final 3 teams there when you go down the playoff stretch for the NFC Championship.
How surprising actually would the Rams, you know, keeping pace with Seattle, maybe ending up winning this division, do you think would be in terms of where they are now versus whatever expectations you had heading into the season?
I think a huge surprise. Going into the season, it looked like maybe they were the 3rd, maybe the 4th. Some people just finished 4th in the division. I think I had them 3rd. And that's really based off the fact that Sean McVay hired 3 new coordinators. Like over the offseason, they moved on from Todd Gurley. They moved on from Brandon Cooks. You look at their defense. Most of those guys left in free agency. Of course, you can't go too much against like a defense that has Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on it. But again, you just didn't know. And you have a first-year coordinator. That could be great, or it might not work out at all. You don't know. So with all of those unknowns, it was easy to think like, okay, the Rams probably aren't going to be super great this year. I
was absolutely skeptical. I didn't think they'd be terrible. Yeah. I didn't think they'd be good. Like I thought it'd be pretty good. The entire
offense has run through Todd Gurley the last several years, even when he was banged up last year. So there was a lot of questions, and if they can now be talked about as a front runner in the NFC, forget the NFC West, in the NFC, in the conference, like that's a resounding success of a season. And I think it really proves that Sean McVay, not that he needed to prove anything when he went to the Super Bowl in his second season, but it really proves he can build a coaching staff too, and he can kind of go out and do his own hiring and figure out the pieces when some of his best pieces moved on.
How do you think? How have you seen him? Obviously, what Brandon Staley's done on the defensive side has gotten a ton of attention, and rightly so. How have you seen McVay change sort of what he's done from that second season where they go to the Super Bowl to here with different personnel, different style? They certainly seem to be running the ball a little bit differently. What's different about what he's done and how he's adjusted the league, adjusting to him?
Yeah, I think the personnel packages, personnel groupings, that's probably what stood out the most, right? Remember in 2018, it was like 11 personnel all day, every day. Same 3 receivers, Todd Gurley in the backfield. I mean, it just never changed, and they were so efficient at doing it. And now this season, I know I answer like fantasy questions every week, like this guy had a big week last week, it's going to be a big week this week. And it's like they have so many different playmakers. And they're spreading the ball around so much that week to week, you really have no idea who Jared Goff is really going to look for and target. We see way more 12 personnel. We see a running back committee, which, again, when you just had Todd Gurley, it was Todd Gurley all the time with an occasional Malcolm Brown signing. So McVay's really evolved in just using his entire arsenal of players versus just going through that 11 personnel where it's like you're in the starting 11 or you're not playing. Now everyone has a chance to get in.
It's interesting. The last couple of weeks you mentioned that running back by committee, like the carries have been split between 3 guys pretty close to even. Yeah. Now that we're heading in the second half of the season, and I know for a lot of the early parts there had been, I know at least from the outside looking in for me, but I've heard other people talk about it too, like kind of difficult to figure out exactly what McVay was looking for or what he was sort of heading towards before it really seems like this even split. Do you get a sense of what he's looking for when he decides to use whichever running back?
I think mostly he's just looking for a running. Well, early downs, he's looking for a back that can run the ball. Later downs, he's looking for a back that can keep Jared Goff upright. I know a lot of people want to see more Cam Akers, and the hardest thing with a rookie running back is to be patient. I was talking to Malcolm Brown about it last week, asking him, like, how hard is it your rookie season when you were young to pick up pass protection and to know who you're blocking and where they're coming from? And he said it was really hard. It takes a long time. So Sean McVay said Cam Akers has to be better without the ball in his hand. So that's all pass protection. So I think until he really sees that we're going to continue to see this committee, and that's why Malcolm Brown gets paid, because he can help keep Jared up. So I know those guys are on your fantasy
team. Right, for the guy who is seen as the sort of least pass-friendly of the 3 running backs, although he's a perfectly capable receiver. He's the other guys are viewed in another way, but he plays an awful lot of third downs. That's why. So that Jared Goff is standing up to pass the ball. You know who was terrible at pass blocking in high school? This guy. I was not good at keeping our quarterback.
Was it an effort thing, or was it like a scheme thing? You didn't know where to go.
I say
no, it was a talent thing. That's the problem. It was a talent thing.
I blame the scheme for not making me want to put myself between the quarterback and the guy who was coming. I was much better just running out to try to catch the pass. Yeah, I didn't like blocking. It wasn't really my thing. It's funny. Dumb. Like I'm putting myself in between a guy. Like that guy's trying to hurt me. I don't want to do that
for your teammate.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you're sort of missing the whole point of football at this point, where you don't want to make contact with somebody coming at you. Like, what are you doing out there?
I didn't say I was very good at it. I'm just saying, didn't like it. Didn't like pass blocking. But like the offense though is it's funny because when you look at the sides of the ball and had to figure out which one is more disappointing, you'd point to the offense. Mm-hmm. How much of this is untimely turnovers combined with just a disaster of a kicking game, and how much of it is, they've got some, whether it's personnel, whether it's things they can and cannot do, in terms of figuring out like what evens itself out and what to look for over the last, 6 games, 7 games of the season. Yeah,
it's kind of hard. Can I see a mixture of all of it?
Sure.
The Miami Dolphins really disrupted what the Rams are trying to do, right? Like Brian Flores has had Sean McVay's number now twice. Going forward, it's like they're not always going to see those zero pressure situations, but you need to see Jared Goff handle that better. Against the Seahawks, Jared had and Jared Goff, when he is on fire. He's a very accurate quarterback. I mean, very effective quarterback when things are going well. But we saw some uncharacteristic, and at one point, some points not uncharacteristic anymore if you keep overthrowing Cooper Kupp. But I think they need him to step up another level. I think he's slumping at the wrong time of the season. So they need to get him back on track. And I think that this last game, you saw them really get back to running the ball. I mean, that's what Sean came into the season wanting to do, was run the football and do it aggressively. We saw them do that. Week 3 was a great example against the Bills. They were down by more than 25 points. They went on a 29-0 run. They had to come from behind, and they did that by running the football. So as long as they stay committed to that, like they did against the Seahawks, Jared will get back in his groove, and I think they'll be fine. But the offense has got to kind of get out of this little slump.
Speaking of trying to get out of that slump and find consistency, Andrew Whitworth out for at least maybe until the playoffs, assuming the Rams get there. How big on the field and also just in the locker room, how big of a loss is that? And just what, again, from distance over Zoom, like we talked about earlier, what did you sense was just the vibe of the team knowing he was going to be out? Because, I mean, his voice matters as much as anybody's on that team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you saw it on the field, right? When he goes down, I mean, players get injured all the time and they're kind of hurried off and whatnot, but like you don't always see players from both teams like taking a knee, standing around, waiting to see if everything's okay. He's obviously been a leader for the Rams since he arrived in 2017. That's a huge loss. And not to minimize that loss, because again, leader of the team, sturdy left tackle who'd been playing as good as anyone this season. But the Rams do have to move forward, right? They can't just lament that they lost their left tackle. Joe Noteboom was drafted 3 years ago to eventually replace Andrew Whitworth. I'm not saying he's going to win that forever right now, but this is his chance to prove.
Well, Whitworth's never going to retire, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
He's just going to keep playing forever.
And losing like 8 pounds a year to keep staying slim until like his last 2 seasons, he's going to be a wide receiver.
He turns 39 next month, you guys. Like, he's still playing. Turn 39. He's still playing in the NFL. That's pretty good, right? I mean,
particularly at that position, my God, you got to love this. Like, I mean, to be playing
that big, like, I mean, that every time you watch him, like, get into his stance and like, God, like, I get tired just bending over to pick up my shoes. This guy's doing that play in and play out.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing to be playing that particular position. It's like him and Jackie Slater, or like the dude.
But the thing about it too is like last year you could maybe like you kind of there's a little bit of slippage in what Whitworth was doing. You see the guys who great out linemen. He wasn't bad by any stretch, but he wasn't the dominant. This year he's been fantastic, and so like I don't know, he bounced back and it's just crazy how effective he is.
I mean, he's such a freak. I mean, he's still playing left tackle for 15 seasons. So if anyone's going to bounce back at this age, he's going to do it. Whether or not he can do it in time to come back and actually play this season, if they get to the playoffs, like that remains to be seen. I know they're very optimistic, and Andrew, he's been chronicling it already on his Instagram. If you're not following him, like his rehab and trying to get going again. So if anyone can do it, he can do it. But in the meantime, the Rams are trying to prepare with Joe Noteboom there.
One of the reasons people were skeptical of the Rams coming into the season was because the offensive line was a little shoddy. They kind of got it together at the end of last year, but there were a lot of questions around the line this season. Mm-hmm. It has been very good. Why?
Some of it has to do with scheme. A lot of play action, right? Mm-hmm. They're not having to block as long. Jared's really not taking the shots down the field. So part of that's scheme-wise, right? A lot of that's also elevated level of play. Last year the line was so beat up that young guys like David Edwards got a shot. Austin Blythe had to move from guard to center, so he's back at center this season. Austin Corbett was new in a role last year. He's back at right guard. Rob Havenstein had a rough go last season before he got hurt. So all of those guys, it's with the experience, it's getting healthy. It's just coming back and kind of kicking it back into gear if you're Rob off that injury. It's really a combination of all kinds of things that are going their way.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really big deal. It's also, though, like you mentioned with Noteboom, this is a real opportunity for him.
Yeah,
because to see him in a high leverage position in really important games, for the Rams to, at best, try to keep themselves paced to win the NFC West. Mm-hmm. At worst, just to make sure they make the playoffs, because they got Arizona right behind them, and it's tight. This division's crazy tight.
The division's tight. I do think, the division very well could send 3 teams, right? The NFL's playoffs, 7 teams from each conference.
I think they will.
That's golden if you're in the NFC West right now, because it is such a good division. You guys, I think, the NFC West teams are at 7 wins, and the NFC East, no team has more than 3 wins, unless let me go check the records from the weekend.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. The NFC East is led by the first place Philadelphia Eagles at 3-5-1.
Yeah.
And the Giants are right behind them, a game behind them at 3-7.
Yeah. The Rams' 4th place team, the 49ers, they have 4 wins.
Yes.
I know. That's how bad that division is. So, they should be disqualified from the playoffs. That's never going to happen.
No, but they really should. And all joking aside, it's a waste of everybody's time to have one of those teams in there, because none of them are good. It really just wastes everyone.
They're not even not good. They're horrendous.
Yeah. It's not like to quote the old Jeff Fisher, we're not talking about some 7-9 bullshit. None of those teams would all be lucky if they reach 7-9.
Well, they're not going to get it. The only reason the Eagles might win 6 or 7 games is because they still have a couple games left against their own division. That's it. But the Eagles, the Eagles have the Browns. Cleveland's better than Philly. They have the Seahawks. They have the Packers, the Saints, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, and Washington. They're what, maybe if they get to 6 wins, it'll be we're going to get a 6-win max playoff team out of that division, which is kind of stunning.
And get this, the Cardinals and the Rams have the 3rd and 4th most difficult remaining strength of schedule, and they're still going to get in the playoffs. I think the Cardinals get in.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, if the Niners weren't so beat up, other than, again, the NFC West teams having to play each other as many times as they do, you could actually, given the extra spot, the fact that it's not like the North is very good either. You could totally make a case for all 4 teams from the NFC West being good enough to get in the playoffs. And it's just that's the world that the Rams live in right now. I guess the Seahawks move into first place based on tonight's win over the Cardinals. It doesn't get easy. Like when the Rams look at like who they have left, like what do they think about this?
Well, they play the Jets and they play the Patriots, but even the Patriots don't. I mean, they were on the downtick there for a while, downhill slide. But even the Patriots, we can't really count them out. That's a Thursday night game. That's on a short week. That's double check what game they're coming off of. Yeah, they're coming off the Cardinals game in Phoenix, and they have the Patriots on a Thursday night. So that's
those are always hard to predict.
Yeah, very, very hard to predict. So basically, they have the Jets. Like, I'm going to put a win in the column against the Jets. Other than that, it's a really tough schedule.
Taking a look at this weekend, and we were talking a lot about the offense. Moving on to the Rams defense, which has really been great this season. When you look at taking on all those different weapons that Tampa has, and you've got Chris Godwin, you've got Mike Evans, you've got Antonio Brown, Gronk. Who are you predicting is going to get the Jalen Ramsey treatment?
Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, I was going to say,
do you think they'll do it the same way as they did with DK Metcalf?
I don't. You know what? I don't think they will. Watch famous last words. I'm going to say Lindsey was wrong. But because the Bucs have so many weapons, I mean, not to say the Seahawks didn't. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, both fantastic. But the Bucs have so many weapons that I'm just not going to be surprised if Jalen is lining up all over the place. Now, if someone gets hot, maybe they change their approach. But I'm just not, maybe we'll see him line up on Gronk. Who knows? He's so versatile, and he has one thing continues to stick out about Jalen. Well, many things stick out about Jalen. But before the season, he said, I don't want to be a cornerback anymore. Like I think of myself more as a defensive back. I mean, that guy believes he can play everywhere on the field, and he's proven this season in a very short span of time that he absolutely can. So I think the Rams would be wise to use him wherever, however necessary, and I don't think that necessarily means on one player for the entire game.
You also wrote a really cool piece a couple days ago about Darius Williams, and you're welcome. The way is by the way the piece coming up, is it a follow up to the Darius Williams piece?
If you enjoyed that Darius Williams piece, you're going to enjoy what I have coming for you next, Andy.
Okay. If you love Darius Williams, you'll love
Darius Williams. Yeah.
Can you tell what do you think has worked so well for him this year? Because like Jalen Ramsey, among other people, has just been raving about him. But also, too, can you break down for some of the people watching right now his story? Because I didn't know really anything about him. And it's a pretty amazing story of perseverance.
Yeah, I didn't really know much about him either because, look, Darius Williams very quietly snuck into the starting lineup at the end of last season. Troy Hill was a hand injury, so he was out the final 2 games. Darius Williams comes in week 17, pick against the 49ers. Week 17, pick against the Arizona Cardinals. And then it's what are the Rams going to do at cornerback opposite of Jalen Ramsey this year? And we're being told Darius Williams. I thought, is Darius Williams a starting caliber game in and game out cornerback? I mean, he's going to have so many balls thrown his way. He's playing opposite of Jalen Ramsey, who he's getting no targets. And Darius Williams has blown everybody away, except for everyone who plays with Darius Williams because they know how great he is. So his story, get this. So he went to a D3 school, played football for a season, wasn't in love with it, just the school, the area. So he went back home, and then he tried Jacksonville, Florida, tried to walk on at UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, and they didn't have a spot for him. They said, no, don't have a spot for you. New coach next season.
It is a pretty big powerhouse, to be fair, though. I mean,
totally, right? I can understand.
Hard nut to crack.
Room for future NFL talent. Next season, new coach. He tried out again, and he made it. Walked on, earned a starting spot, earned a scholarship. But then, if you guys remember, I remember all this saga because I was covering college football at the time. UAB's program folds. Just dismantled. 6 months later, after a ton of backlash, okay, we'll reinstate the program. But they didn't actually play the 2015 or 2016 season. And in the meantime, Darius went home, went to college, a local school, and he worked as a flower delivery person for the local hardware store before he went back to UAB for his final season. So he played 2 seasons at UAB in the span of many years because of how that program went. Went undrafted, did not get drafted. Ravens picked him up as a UDFA, he got cut, and then the Rams got him, and now like he's balling. He has 4 interceptions, like top 10 in all the categories for defensive backs. Like he's just been phenomenal. That was a long story.
But how does this happen? Like, I mean, because look, I mean, the NFL, they will talent. They will always find you, and that. But how does this guy? How do you go? How do you slip through the cracks like that? I mean, I realize he's in the league. Someone found him and put him there, but at the same time, you would was he a late bloomer? Like, what happened that allowed him to become this guy?
People peak at different times. I called Aqib Talib about it because Darius mentioned that Aqib Talib took him under his wing. And so I called Aqib and said, what is this guy's deal? And Aqib said, look, we knew, like me and Marcus Peters, when we had him in the meeting rooms and we saw his stuff and we saw him on the practice field, like we knew right away, like this guy is different, like the way he moves, how fast he is. And he just wanted to ask Aqib every question possible about what he sees on film, why he broke there. And so he's obviously studied the game. So I don't know. Like, I don't know how a guy like that slips through in college and then slips through and doesn't get drafted.
I mean, the Rams had that same story with Corey Littleton. I mean, he was really overlooked, and he ended up a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, and Corey Littleton, I mean, he actually obviously went to Washington. His story really, I mean, he was in betweener, right? D-end, linebacker, didn't really have a position. Everyone in the NFL was calling him a tweener, like not sure where he'd play. So it kind of made a little bit of sense why he, didn't get drafted. But Darius Williams, I mean, you could say he's short, he's 5'9", but there's a lot. Nickel Roby-Coleman was like my height, if not a little shorter, like 5'7". He's
a little dude.
For the record, Lindsey Thiry is 4'8".
5'7" and 3/4.
Well, during your volleyball days, the 3/4 really did matter. Like
I was 5'8".
Why so short? I would have given yourself 5'9" and 3/4.
But yeah, I mean,
it was. I like I said, I didn't know anything about Darius, and it's pretty cool to see him in an opportunity, especially too with that secondary. They keep having guys in and out. It's nice that somebody like him is able to break through when you need some type of consistency with just who's available.
Mm-hmm. And he has done a phenomenal job. I mean, again, the amount of pressure that is on him when you have Jalen Ramsey on the other side of the field, like no one is throwing the ball at Jalen Ramsey. You are getting, every play. Like if it's a passing play, it's probably coming to you. So to stand up in those moments, I mean, he had an interception in the end zone in Philadelphia. In Buffalo, bogus call. He should have had the game-winning play, breaking up a pass on defense. He didn't break up the pass, but he defended the receiver. It was great defense. Flag comes out late. Should have been Rams win there. He had a pick that sealed the win the next week against the Giants. I mean, this guy has been so clutch. That doesn't happen by mistake.
What happens? Because a guy like Taylor Rapp's been in and out of the lineup, and so he was sort of, I think, coming into this.
He just got hurt again.
Yeah.
Somebody fans expected, to be a really big part of the defense. When everybody's back, like what does this sort of thing look like? Do they have an expectation of where the defense could be, both from a personnel standpoint and a performance standpoint, in 5 or 6 weeks as hopefully the playoffs start?
Yeah, Taylor Rapp, they said about 3 to 4 weeks. So he can easily be back come the end of the season, come ready for the playoffs. They've been using a lot of 3 safeties. So that's John Johnson, Taylor Rapp, Jordan Fuller, the rookie, who is now back on IR. Yeah, he's been terrific. Here's the thing. I mean, the one thing also on this defense, it's kind of hard to keep track of, if I'm being completely transparent, only because they are subbing a lot. There are so many substitutions on the front, on the back end of it. I mean, those guys are staying fresh. So that's been a little bit different than maybe what we've seen in the past. A lot of guys. Leonard Floyd has been a constant at one of those edge spots, but the other side's been a bit of a rotation. So it's a little bit tough to keep track of everybody, like in the moment while the game's happening. But I think that's a benefit to the Rams. I mean, one ton of experience for everybody, but also people are fresh and they're going to keep legs longer all season.
The last part of the defense before we let you go here and get back to your real work. A lot was made out of the linebacking core and the fact that they might not have a very good one. The defense has obviously been very good. You still don't hear a lot about the linebackers, but it hasn't hurt them. Why? What has worked well, and why hasn't this been a problem?
Well, I think that one of the reasons why the Rams were a little short on cash, but two, one of the reasons why they were able to go into the season with like Micah Kaiser, Kenny Young, Troy Reader, Traven Howard obviously got hurt before the season. I don't know that this position. I don't know in Brandon Staley's scheme that it's a position you need to put a premium on.
Okay.
It's someone to plug up a hole, and those guys have done a nice job, and I don't want to take anything away from them because they have done a nice job. But it's not necessarily the playmaker in this scheme, right? The way they're using Jalen Ramsey, like they're putting him in a position to get to the ball. The way that they use all their defensive backs, really. So again, they're doing fine. They're doing a sufficient job, but in this scheme, it's just not a premium position.
It's just funny. Just traditionally, you think of like middle linebacker as the most important part of any defense. Like it's hard to retrain your mind not to be focusing on that area.
Tell you who plays that position for the Rams? Like if they even have a middle linebacker.
Well, but remember when?
No, you're right. You're absolutely
like
right.
When Alec Ogletree left a couple years ago, like the idea of whether Corey Littleton would be ready, and like how do you replace somebody like Ogletree? He was a good linebacker, but he was a really big leader in that locker room. And he was somebody that
he went. That was stunning when they let him go. But in Wade Phillips' scheme, which Brandon Staley still runs a 3-4, like Wade installed. It wasn't a premium. Like they just didn't need to pay the middle linebacker that much money in that scheme. And I think that's the same thing we're seeing here. That just doesn't need to happen like that. And Corey Littleton he developed into be a monster. Ability to his ball skills were pretty great for a middle linebacker, inside linebacker. But again, just not something that you need in this 3-4.
It just goes to show that these guys know more about football than I do. Which
also better pass blockers.
Some of them, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't
look at all of them. Right?
I'm willing to bet all of them. I'm willing to bet every single one of them.
I was more than happy to take contact when I was carrying the ball as a running back. I didn't like it if I didn't have the ball.
McVay was a quarterback, correct?
He was.
I'm willing to bet McVay was a better pass blocker than you were.
I bet he was. I'm not debating the point. Who wins on Monday?
I believe I officially have the Rams. I think at the 26-21. Can't remember my exact official ESPN pick, but I do have the Rams winning. I think their defense is for real.
Any thoughts on whether Chris Godwin or Ronald Jones would be a better fantasy play against this defense, or sit them both? I need Lindsey's insight.
I don't think I'd go with Godwin.
I currently have him benched.
Yeah, I'd go with Ronald Jones to fight on forever, right?
There you go.
Man, I feel old now. Ronald Jones. We were covering him back in the day, and he was always talking about Whataburger.
Yeah, that's true. He talked all the time about Whataburger.
He did actually.
Talked about Whataburger.
Proud Texan, hamburger eating Texan.
Yeah, we're all getting old.
Yeah,
I know. We all are.
Lindsey Thiry covers the Rams for ESPN, covers the NFL for ESPN, does an outstanding job, and actually has work to do tonight that she stopped to do this, which we always appreciate.
Big secret story coming out tomorrow, so be on the lookout for it. ESPN.com.
Monday.
In
conjunction with Monday Night Football.
Wait, Monday? Then you've got an extra 15 minutes for us. It's only on Monday?
How slow are your editors, for crying out loud?
No, my editors are terrific. It is a long story. And you editors don't get enough credit. I mean, some of the things that I turn in.
They're not watching, Lindsey. I promise. They're not watching this show.
Maybe
they're like TikTok. Where's my story?
Maybe they are.
Guys, you are only as good as your editor.
That is true.
Editors are awesome.
Yeah. The only reason the editors are watching this is they tuned in because they saw on our Twitter feed. They're like, "What the hell is she doing? She should be writing."
I know that's happening. You know it's going to happen.
All right.
Anything I can do to make their lives easier, I'm doing it.
All right. Well, he's off.
This
11.
is up for if she's up for it, we're up for it. Lindsey needs to be a weekly guest. We would never ask somebody to stay up late every week, but we will have you back soon if you can.
You guys, I appreciate you sticking by me. I know that I pulled a late cancellation.
No, but you've had some with pause. You weren't flaky. Don't worry about
it. We totally understand.
All right,
go get your work done.
Soon.
See you later.
Thanks for having me.
See ya.
Oh, I think I let her go. Wait, sorry. Were you saying something?
I'm just
sorry.
Okay, she's back
too early.
Let us know, when do you want to go officially?
I want to go now, but I see the leave studio button now. I'm out.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
It's the first time that's ever happened before.
Yeah,
brought somebody back.
Yeah, usually we have to hide that leave studio button.
It's too tempting.
People are constantly trying to escape.
No, the fact that people don't know where it is maybe could explain why people stay the whole hour. Like they just don't know how to leave. Like it's like an escape hatch they can't find.
I know. Like basically the entire show is an escape room. We're actually slow. We spend most of the show dropping little clues as to how people can get out of the room. I will say, like, look, I can't break down football like really any of these people that we have on the show, which is why we have them on the show. But the Rams, at this point, it is very clear the Rams are better than I thought they'd be. I mean, like, and they're what's interesting to me about it is they're better for different reasons than I thought. Like, and I think that's true for a lot of things. I think, the defense has been much more effective than people thought it would be. They're running the ball. The offensive line has just been better than I think most people expected it to be.
I don't
but it hasn't been because like Goff has stepped up and been awesome, or the offense is just trucking along and at a great pace. It hasn't looked, I think, the way that people thought. It's just been effective.
Well, I think it was Chris in the chat pointed this out. My apologies if I'm crediting the wrong person, but the Rams last season, like the last 4 or 5 games, when they finally had the same linemen every game, started looking better.
It's true.
The early half of the season, part of the reason the offense was so bad, Gurley clearly wasn't himself, and like Lindsey pointed out earlier, the entire offense was built around Todd Gurley. And, you had the whole soap opera going on with the way he was being used, which he clearly wasn't happy about. And, Sean McVay clearly was apprehensive on a lot of different levels to use him the way he had the first couple of years when the Rams were the best, arguably the best offense in football. But also, too, they kept having injuries along the line and moving guys to different positions.
And the continuity, and they had so much continuity in the years before that to lose it was significant, obviously. But the other thing about it is, too, is like part of the reason the offensive line got better as the year went along was both continuity, and that's when McVay started to change the personnel. It's when he started, they were doing more of the multiple tight end sets and doing all that kind of stuff. So you started to see his flexibility. But it's, there's still, I mean, look, the first half of the schedule, like we can all agree, was easy.
Yes, it was.
We spent a lot of time making fun of the NFC East. That's where the Rams ran up a lot of their record. So, it is still remains to be seen to some degree how they hold up against this second half schedule. And they got off to a good start last week, beating the Seahawks. I thought it was, they won that game by 7, but I thought the Rams, controlled that game. They were definitely the better team. But, you run that first half record up against the Cowboys, the Eagles, you lose to Buffalo despite the comeback. You beat the Giants. Great. You beat Washington. Great. You beat up 49er, or you lose to a 49ers team in like the 1 week they're semi-healthy. You lose to a Dolphins team, which
Dolphins turned out are actually a good team.
Better than people think, but like they got their asses kicked in that game.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. But that was also a game too where Sean McVay, I think you actually made this observation. Sean McVay, we don't cover this team day in, day out, but we've been around it a while.
Yeah.
McVay will always say, after every game, even games where they win by 30,
yes,
McVay will say that there's a lot he needs to
do better.
That's just a standard line.
Yes.
In this particular case, as you pointed out, this was Goff. I mean, this was McVay being completely transparently honest. Like, it was not self-effacing. This was real. And it was better in Seattle.
It was better in Seattle, but you go Tampa, you've got the Niners again, you got the Cardinals twice, and we went through the schedule already. But like, It's not guaranteed like that. I think we really will learn a lot, whether they win or lose. If they play a very competitive game in Tampa on Monday night, I think you can feel pretty comfortable about how they're going to get through the rest of the season, that, they can split with the Cardinals, that they can not drop games against the Patriots and Jets and do something really stupid,
first of all, just
and get in the playoffs.
Just for pole position purposes, getting that win against Seattle was huge. And they caught Seattle at a good time. Seattle was pretty banged up when they played them. But the bottom line is, when the division is this tight and you're looking to rise up as much as possible, it really matters.
So I'm not going to get greedy about this. Like if the Rams, they have an opportunity. You beat Tampa Bay, and you have an opportunity to be a number one seed in the NFC. I mean, Tampa, that would put the Rams at 7-3, the Seahawks at 7-3, with the Rams having the early tiebreaker in Green Bay at 7-2. The Saints are 7-2. Like, you're right up there with all of these quality teams, and who knows how the Saints do without Drew Brees for a few weeks. I'm not getting greedy though. Like, just get in the playoffs,
or just get a kicker. Just get a kicker.
That's the other thing.
It's so bizarre the way they can't find a kicker who can stay healthy, even much less actually kick.
It seems like it's been worse this year. Like, there are more teams that look like. I always wondered. I don't particularly like college football. I don't pay that close attention to it. But I've always been mystified by how teams like Alabama, great programs, can have shitty kickers. Like the 11th outside linebacker on the roster ends up getting drafted, but they can't find one guy to be a decent kicker. And this happens at major college programs far more often than you would think, where they won't give up one scholarship to find a decent kicker, which can be the difference between making a title game and not. But to see that at the pro level, where the Rams have chewed through kickers, Jacksonville has chewed through kickers this year, Tennessee with Gostkowski can't make a kick this year. They're even beyond moving the extra point to out of chip shot territory. It's mystifying to me that when teams can't find at least a semi-reliable kicker, and it's cost the Rams, I think, not just the 4 to 6 points a week that they're losing literally from missing kicks. I think it's absolutely changed the way McVay's called plays. I mean, they were more than happy to let Zerline line up from 52 every time last year.
I was listening to sort of prepping up a little bit for Lindsey coming on tonight. I was listening to the 11-man personnel, the athletic podcast with Jordan Rodriguez and Rich Hammond. And I don't know for sure if Jordan was talking about this like this was, I guess it has to be a press conference setting because there's no direct contact with any of these people in the COVID age. But McVay said in so many words, you don't really know what you have in Greg Zuerlein until he's gone.
Yes.
And I mean, I think he even said he's been very, very complimentary of Zuerlein over the years, as everybody was, because the guy was amazing. But I don't want to say take him for granted, but it starts becoming normal that a guy can make a 55-yard field goal and you don't really have to worry about it.
No, I knew they were doomed the minute that Sam Sloman was like, oh, no, it's Samuel. That is not, no. Samuel is not the name of the guy you
especially when your last name is Sloman. Yeah, you want to be Sammy, if nothing else, like Sammy Sloman. Maybe,
that's
but
better.
Samuel.
Sam Sloman's fine. Sammy Sloman's okay. Samuel, no, that's not going to get it done. It's not. And he had his deal where he would miss the opening kick every single time. He's got to get one out of the way. That's your mulligan. That's not how this works. And hopefully Matt Gay, the revenge game, the whole revenge game for the kicker thing works out, but they're not going to win anything this year without a kicker.
No,
they got to come up with something.
No, it's a really, really big deal. And again, you start taking it for granted. I mean, again, I don't want to say it like that because it feels cliche, But after a while, when you have a kicker as good as Zuerlein, it starts just becoming force of habit that he's an option whenever.
Right. Go back to it. Really, I mean, beyond how it opens up your play calling, and the flexibility you have, knowing that we can make plays towards the end zone, we can be more aggressive, whatever it is, because I know we have a guy who can kick a 48-yard field goal or a 52-yard field goal or whatever it might be. When we were talking to Chris Hayre earlier in the week, the Chargers. They're not really a good team right now, but they'd be much closer to 500 if they had competent special teams. There's something about bad special teams that is especially deflating, about a decent drive where you go from your own 20 and you chew up 5 or 6 minutes and you get to the other team's 30 and you miss a field goal that is even more deflating than like a 3-and-out or a turnover. And so when you miss kicks, when you have you get a punt blocked, special teams are things that you're only supposed to notice when they go wrong.
Okay. Speaking, or you notice when they cover a team's ass. You and I covered the first year the Rams were in LA with Jeff Fisher. The only
thing they could do right was special teams.
The only thing they could do right was special teams, but specifically Johnny Hecker.
Yes.
Johnny Hecker Todd Gurley was their best. I'd say Aaron Donald was their best player. Johnny Hecker was their second best player. Todd Gurley was third, and fourth. Who cares?
Right.
It doesn't matter.
It's not good when your punter is your best player. But it makes a difference.
As bad as that team was, and they were awful, particularly off. I mean, defensively, they actually were not terrible.
They were fine. I mean, teams were very conservative against them because they knew once they got to 14 on the scoreboard, the game was over.
But as bad as that group was, do you know how awful they would have been without Johnny Hecker basically just digging them out of holes with those punts?
No, absolutely.
They would have given up double. They would have given up double the averages with everything going on there.
But I do think mentally, because Mom used to talk about this when they would go to the games in St. Louis, because she would knit. That's what she would do. She would go, as she said, the dome in St. Louis. She had no interest in football. She didn't like watching.
She hates football.
She didn't like watching it when we played. She certainly didn't like watching it when we weren't playing. But she liked to go to the games because they had the best lighting in the city, she said, for knitting.
And needle pointing. So she would go and bring her stuff. This is back in the day where you could do these sorts of things. Yes. You cannot do that now.
No, where a 5 foot, 90-pound little Jewish lady with her knitting needles would be seen as a threat. But I digress. Her big thing.
I'm getting somewhere, people.
She would always look at Jeff Wilkins, who was the kicker at the time, and feel sad for him because nobody would talk to him. Yeah. Everybody else on the team seemed like they were friends, and nobody would talk to the kicker. And it's because they don't like him. And I don't mean Jeff Wilkins. I mean him, the kicker. They don't like him because these guys kill each other. And then, the dude in the clean uniform, and we've all heard all these cliches and stuff before, but it's true, comes out and everything they've done is hinging on whether or not this guy can kick the ball through. It's even, to some degree, it's even weird football has kicks. I'll be honest with you. But it's when they fail, it really, really messes, I think, with the psychology of a team. It messes with the psychology of a coach. It messes with everything. When you can't cover kicks, when you can't kick kicks, all that stuff.
It's the equivalent in a lot of ways of if you're a basketball team that can really grind defensively, but you can't score, it becomes deflating after a while. I mean, when you're out there, it's not even that guys aren't willing to play defense the whole game. But at some point, man, it's you want to see it paid off.
Yes, and I think that's true. It's it is more deflating for a team to not be able to score than it is to not be able to get stops.
Absolutely, 100%. And if you ask these guys and really can get them candid, they'll all admit it's the same thing. As much even teams that consider themselves defensively oriented teams, defense first teams, if you get them candid, they will admit yeah, it takes the wind out of you if you cannot score, if you really struggle to score.
Right. Like, and I think that's like, and we're going to get way back into, tomorrow with the NBA, is the opening of free agency. So there's going to be some stuff going on. And tomorrow night we'll have Mo Tequila on from Bleacher Report and The Athletic talking about stuff. But like that's one of the things that I think worried people about the Lakers going into the bubble and into the playoffs was like if you run into a situation where if you can't score, like when you have to go through an entire playoffs grinding through on your defense and just entirely reliant on your defense being epic all the time. That's hard. It's pressure. So
no, absolutely. So the Rams need to get that together. Hopefully whoever it is that's going to be kicking for them permanently for the rest of this season.
Hopefully that's the last one.
I was going to say I'm not quite ready to say it's Matt Gay just because this whole season has been such a roller coaster. But hopefully it's him. Hopefully he can get the job done because it'll make a big difference for the Rams.
All right. So as you see here, scrolling under, I mentioned Mo Tequila coming on tomorrow. We are going to take the Thanksgiving week off and pretend it's a normal Thanksgiving week where people are away from their computers and they're traveling and they're with family and friends and they're doing all this stuff. And sort of disconnecting, we're going to do it. if you don't, we can't do the family and friends stuff like most people. We are in the same boat as everyone else, but we are going to take the holiday week off. But the week following, I'm telling you, people, we've already got guests lined up. Like already, like we are ready for you guys the week after the holiday. So tomorrow night though, tune in. Beginning of NBA free agency. And Mo Tequila from Bleacher Report and The Athletic will be our guest. We love Mo, and he is
the best.
The best. Okay, cool. We'll see everybody tomorrow.
Dank you, Nederland.